Seeing and rendering value is a key to creating believable images. In order to understand value drawing, we need to think about how light illuminates forms. This study is called light logic. Let's take a look at light and shadow, and then we can talk about drawing techniques to achieve those effects. Value is one of the three components of color, those being hue, value, and intensity. So we need to have good control over value before we learn to juggle all three components. Light illuminates form, and it does so in a predictable and understandable way. So if we learn how to look for and render light and form, we will have a powerful tool in our arsenal. The easiest way to learn about light logic is to work with basic geometric forms painted white from a single light source. In the real world, we will encounter complex forms with surface patterns and objects of color which complicate our value observation. For instance, how do you make a dark yellow? We will also encounter multiple light sources and diffused lighting. Non-directional fluorescent lighting will not be your friend. The component parts of light logic are most clearly observed with the sphere. Here we can see the subtlety of light playing across the form. Most essentially, we have a light side and a shadow side to our sphere, but there's no hard edge defining the way the shadow wraps around the ball. Within the light side, there is a highlight, the brightest spot, which will be angled towards the light bulb or light source. Gradually, this light side transitions into the shadow side of the form. The core shadow, or darkest part of the form, will be contained within the object, usually about 2/3 of the way around the form. The darkest part is not on the edge. Note that there is often a reflected light contained within the shadow side. Be careful not to make this too light. It should not compete with the light side of the sphere. The cast shadow is not contained, but is rather cast onto another surface, a ground plane, or another object. The cast shadow will be sharpest next to the form itself, and will have a lighter tone and softer edge further away from the form. Also note that, to make the light side appear light, we have to put a little tone behind it in the background. When you have multiple forms set up, they will be affecting one another, reflecting light and casting shadows. These relationships give a wonderful sense of light and form. But since we have a very limited range of value with our drawing materials, we often have to stretch the value range to get more dramatic effect. One of the best ways to do this is through the technique known as chiaroscuro. From the Italian, chiaro means light and scuro means dark, so it is literally light and dark. Along with perspective, chiaroscuro was one of the main inventions of the Italian Renaissance that made the art of that period look so realistic. Chiaroscuro can appear melodramatic, as here, where the value contrast is exaggerated for effect. The technique of chiaroscuro is perhaps best shown in the work of Michelangelo Caravaggio, whose dramatic stagings and theatrical storytelling made biblical stories come alive to the audience of that time. Or in the window lighting of Jan Vermeer's intimate interiors. Look how every form seems to span the entire value scale from white to black. Also, notice how the light plays across the back wall. Nothing is flat when light and shadow play across it. It's always helpful to have the idea of a value scale at hand, and not an actual one. Anywhere we see a relationship between two forms, we should see a value shift. Is it subtle? Is it a shift from a 3 value to a 4, or is it a large shift from a 3 to an 8? To really draw forms and value, we should consider a couple of concepts. The drawings on top show a beginner's understanding of light logic, but also show some confusion. To really do a value drawing, we should not have black outlines around our objects. That flattens them out. Cast shadows should not have hard edges or be handled as flat black shapes with hard edges. Look for the subtlety of value relationships in your gray areas. Always know where your light source is. The highlight should indicate the light's location, which in this case is above and to the right, slightly from behind. Can you see that? Try not to over-exaggerate the value contrast, or your forms will appear distorted. Realize that the range of your materials limits your value range. Pencils especially have a very limited value range. The hardest will start out very light. Make sure that you push into the darker range with softer pencils. Consider the range of pencils from light to dark. H pencils have clay in them, which gives a more silvery tone. B pencils have more graphite and are softer, meaning they will not hold a point as well and will need to be sharpened more often. But even our darkest pencils will be lighter than charcoal. When working in pencil, make sure that you're using good quality, thick paper or illustration board that won't buckle under the pressure. Please don't draw with newsprint and pencil. Charcoal comes in a range of hardnesses and forms as well. With charcoal, you should be able to get the dark range, but the lighter range may be more difficult. Pencil and charcoal have different appearances and are hard to combine effectively. Charcoal in pencil form, as shown at left, ranges from hard to soft to medium and very soft. Chunks of charcoal can be very expressive but are dark and sloppy if you're not careful. Fine charcoal is very soft and transparent. It might blow away. A blending stump is helpful in pushing the powder down into the surface of the paper and evening out the tone. When working with charcoal, you should spray your finished drawing with an even mix of fixative. Let's get to work.